All right, so at this point, what I've done is I made 3 charts just following the measurements at the bottom of the reference handout. So 18 centimeters across, 3 centimeters down. I took my ruler, did a quick 18 across, 3 centimeters down on each side, and then connected it. It's almost basically like tracing the exterior of your ruler. And then if you divide it in every 3 centimeters, you're going to get 6 equal spaces. So 3 by 3 boxes. Okay, in the top one, we're going to practice creating tints. You can tint any color that you could possibly think of can have tints. So you're creating different values by lightening the original color. The original color is our most saturated color. It's our color that's straight out of the tube. It's 100% what that color should be, okay? And then as we get lighter, it gets less saturated. So we'll label the top one tints. Okay, and you can define it as lightening a color by adding white. So we're gradually adding white to make sure that we have a variety of different values. Okay. The next one down here, we'll do tint tones. And in this one, we're going to be dulling a color. Dulling a color by adding gray. Okay, so the color is brighter here and then it gets duller. So like not necessarily darker. I wouldn't say that this looks like it's getting darker than this side, but it's getting less bright, right? And then the last one, we're going to be creating shades. In which case we're going to darken the color by adding black. Okay, and I just kind of used whatever colors I had available to create this reference for you guys. You use whatever color you have a lot of on your paint palette. Hopefully you've got quite a bit of red or blue. It's easy if you use a primary color for this, because if you use something like green and then you run out of green halfway, then you're stuck trying to mix that exact same green again, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna use the blue, okay? So I want this to be my most saturated blue, meaning straight out of the tube. So I'm gonna take my original blue and I'm going to block in that first square. If you have red, you could do this with red too. It's gonna lighten up to a nice pink. Okay, so again, try to get a nice unison color in that square. So it's almost like you're doing a black and white painting, but black on a painting. Okay, next what I'm going to do is, if you want actually, when it's kind of dry, you could even give it a second layer. It makes it a bit more opaque. When you're working with acrylics too, you'll see like more expensive acrylics have a different texture than the cheap ones that we share in school. This one's a little bit watery. So 2 layers looks a bit nicer than 1. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit of white. I'm gonna do it very slowly so that it gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. Okay, so I'm gonna take my blue, right? An area of the blue that's not touching any other color. I'm going to introduce a little bit of white into it. So you want to create your darkest blue, but that's lighter than your original blue. On camera, you can't see that mine is changing much, but in person, I can tell that it's a different blue. So you be the gauge of your colors. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix even more white into it. It's going to scoop a little bit more white, and I'm going to go into that same puddle of blue. Your goal is to, again, show me that you can create different varieties. So if it's too alike, then add a little bit more white. It should be, again, you should be able to squint at your paper and see a different value. And I'm going to continue to add white to that. I feel like this is looking too much like this, so I'm going to just wipe a bit of this blue off on my napkin, and I'm going to pick up a little bit more white and mix it in until I feel like this looks different. With this, you could be sloppy. I'm not worried about you filling in the squares necessarily perfectly. I'm worried about you actually having different tints of blue. So keep revising it until you see a lighter version of it, the one before. Like when I'm looking at mine, I can definitely see different blues. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. This time I'm gonna add quite a bit more white to this. And the very last one, I'm literally dipping my dirty brush with a very, very pale blue into white. Like this one's gonna be basically off-white. Okay, in fact, this still looks too much alike, so I'm gonna wipe this brush off even more. And maybe add even more white. It should be almost like a silver color. Like a off-white pulling on a blue. See how light you could get that blue. Okay, and when you're happy with it, rinse your brush off really good, dry it off really well, and reshape it with your fingers until you're ready for your next. Okay. So again, check out all of the different tints that we could create by adding white gradually to any color.